Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first joint webinar between the Hemophilia Foundation of Oregon and the Hemophilia Center at OHSU. My name is Susan Lattimore. I am the Associate Director for the Hemophilia Center, and I'm joined by Madonna McGuire Smith, who's the Executive Director for the Hemophilia Foundation of Oregon, and Kristina Haley, who is the Medical Director for the Hemophilia Center at OHSU. Just wanted to give you a couple of pieces as we get started. We've muted everyone's line. There's a chat box that's available in the corner of your screen where you can send your questions that you may have as we move through this webinar. I've also taken everyone's video feed away because we were having some challenges with people being able to see the hosts and the people who are leading the conversation. If you have any questions as you go along, please use the chat line and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible as we get started. Kristina, if you'd like to get started.
Great. I was going to say good morning, which I think is like characteristic of this pandemic of like not knowing what day or time it is, as we all live in kind of an altered reality from what we're used to. So I'm one of the pediatric hematologists here at the Hemophilia Center, and then I'm the medical director for the center. And I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit as we get started about what the center has been up to and where we're at currently for continuing to provide clinical services. So right now, under direction from OHSU and as per the Oregon Health Authority and Governor Brown's recommendations, everyone that can work from home is working from home. So that means that the majority of the people that work at the Hemophilia Center are working from their homes and taking calls from home and getting into the medical chart from home. And then we communicate with each other through various forms. I think we have about like 7 different ways we can get a hold of one another if we need to. So you can still certainly get a hold of any of us. You should just use the same numbers that you're used to calling, whether it's for the clinical team or for the factor pharmacy. Just use the same numbers and then the team will get a hold of who you need. And be patient as we might be like using a few forms of communication to get a hold of one another rather than just running down the hallway to find somebody in their office. For right now, we're only doing in-person visits for urgent clinical needs and doing the rest of our visits either via telephone or hopefully in the next week or so through video chats or through video visits. We were set to start video visits sometime this summer, but OHSU has really pushed to get video visits up and going for the whole OHSU wide system. So everybody's getting up and running a lot faster, and we're hopeful that that will happen for us in the next couple days. And if you need us, please, please, please still reach out. We will figure out a way to get you taken care of, whether that's you coming to clinic if we need to, or if we do a virtual visit or a telephone visit. We are here still to help with whatever we can with regard to your bleeding disorder. And then I just also wanted to mention that we haven't heard of any medication shortages at this time, but we continue to actively monitor that. And we will keep you up to date as we hear any news on that front. And then the last thing I wanted to say before I turn it over to Madonna is that we just continue to encourage everyone to wash your hands and stay home when you can. And that from what we can tell that the work that everybody is doing, the hard work of staying home and not going out is making it's having an effect, and we're seeing that the infection rate is much lower, and that is because everybody's staying home, and now is the time to keep up with that, with those efforts. So good work.
All right, well, thanks, Dr. Haley. So I just wanted to reassure everyone that HFO is still here. We're still working. There are 7 of us that work for the organization, and we're all working from home, again, per the requirements or recommendations of the state and especially Governor Brown. And I think most of you know I have a senior in high school in my house, and we learned today that all graduations are canceled and school is out through the rest of the calendar year. So Governor Brown announced that today, which makes it really sad for some of the kids out there that I know are missing a lot of their life-changing events and exciting things that happen their senior year. But we're going to do our best to make everybody still celebrate and enjoy the lives that we do have and how safe and happy we all are. So we're moving ahead with a bunch of virtual meetings. The first one is this one, so thank you for participating. I'm glad that we have a good number of participants on the call, and I hope that the future will have more. Our first one is going to be a celebration of World Hemophilia Day, which is next Thursday, the 16th. It'll start at 7 p.m. and there'll be separate registrations for each one. So if you want to attend, you need to register for them. That will start at 7 on the 16th, and we're going to have a variety of speakers involved. I've talked with Pat Torrey from Gut Monkey, so I hope they're able to join us. And we have Poison Waters. So if any of you have been to our event in the fall called Shooting for the Stars fundraiser, he's actually a very famous drag queen in Portland, and he's going to be joining us next Thursday. We also have Frowley, a young guy from Ethiopia, part of our twinning partnership. So there'll be a variety of people. And the other really cool thing we're going to do is we're going to sort of highlight all of our seniors. And we know of 6 graduating seniors. So if you know of a graduating senior, please make sure you email me and let me know so that we can include them in the celebration on the 16th. And my email, you can send it to madonna@hemophiliaoregon.org, or you can send it to m.mcguiresmith@pnwbd.org. And maybe Susan or Michelle could type that into the, or maybe I'll put it up on the screen at the end. Also, then the 23rd of April, we're going to have, Griffles is going to do a product safety discussion. There have been a lot of questions about whether products are safe during this time. Can COVID be passed through either any of the products that are used to treat hemophilia? So Griffles is going to touch on some of that for us on the 23rd. Then on the 30th of April, we're going to do another fun one like this, more like a town hall. We're going to do some fun talking and different conversations. Then on the 7th of May, Bayer's going to do, and now back to you. It's all about self-improvement and life change. And so a lot of us are in a very life-changing situation right now. So we thought that'd be a great topic to help us through. And then the 14th will be another fun town hall type meeting. And the 21st of May is going to be BioMarin, and they're going to do one on some of the basics of gene therapy. So we have a good variety of topics coming up. We're also looking into maybe doing some get up and get moving workshops like on Tuesdays at 2. So look for more exciting things coming in the next few weeks. We're trying to keep our website up as current as possible. So if you ever have questions about what's going on, you can always go to our website, www.hemophiliaoregon.org, and that will have, right now on the front page, you can click on one of the links and it'll take you right to all of those webinars that I just described. So you're welcome to go there at any time and find out what's going on. And finally, if you've been affected by COVID in any way, like you've had problems with either insurance or anything related to employment or just anything related to this challenging time, I encourage you to contact the Hemophilia Center through the normal channels and make sure that you share with them what those challenges are, because we do have some financial resources to help with a little bit. Not everyone, we don't have enough to help with every person out there, but if you definitely need some sort of help or have a conversation about any of those things I just mentioned, be sure to call the treatment center and they'll make sure they connect you with the right person to put you through the process. So I think that's all for now from me. Oh, I just got a reminder. I forgot to mention on Mondays at 4, we have a teen hangout. So if you're a 14 to 21-year-old, you've been involved in our teen program, or even if you haven't, if you're interested in hanging with the teens every Monday at 4, you can do that. Sometimes there'll be some of the chaperones who have been at different events with the teens, and some of them will be just teens hanging out. It'll probably be different each week, but it's kind of an open forum and a fun discussion for the kids to get together on Mondays at 4. So thanks for that reminder, Michelle. I think that's all from me, Susan.
Thanks, Madonna. Kristina, I have a question for you. Should I stock up on my child's factor, and how much medicine should I have on hand?
Great question, Susan. So we are recommending that everybody keep a 1 month supply of medicine on hand. There's some recommendations from the medical advisory and scientific, oh, I just lost the letters.
Maysac.
Thank you, Maysac. I was like, to keep 2 weeks of factor on hand, and I think that's a good starting spot. If you can keep a month on hand, that's our recommendation. So when you're ordering, our team is working to try to make sure that we can get work with your insurance to get authorization for that. And if you're having a hard time getting access to your medication, please let us know. But for right now, we're recommending 1 month supply.
Thank you. Madonna, I have another question for you. So what if I just forgot all the things you just said about all of those events? Where am I supposed to go again, and how do I get that information?
So we've been sending out emails. So you might have gotten an email that has all the links in it. And those emails come from an email server called Constant Contact. So it should just be a generic email that comes with a list of things and a bunch of buttons in it. If you've been getting our Survey Mondays, then you've probably got that email as well. But if you can't find the email, you can always go to our website, and it's just hemophiliaoregon.org. And on the front page, there's something in blue that says, virtual, canceled, and postponed event information, click here. And then it takes you to the page that has all of that stuff on it.
Great. Dr. Haley, I'm tired of being in this house. What can I do, and how can I do that? Because I've been told that I'm supposed to stay indoors, but I'm going stir crazy. Maybe I have 2 teenage kids. Maybe I have a dog. Maybe I have a husband who works from home. Or maybe I'm home alone and I don't know what to do with myself. Do you have any suggestions of things that I could be doing, or am I supposed to just stay inside my house?
Good question. I think the recommendations are to avoid crowded places, but if you can get outside and go for walks or bike rides in areas that aren't crowded, where you can maintain a distance of at least 6 feet from other individuals, then you should get outside. I think I recently this weekend went out for a walk on the waterfront by the Willamette, and it was a beautiful day in Oregon, and I think like the first sunny day we'd had in a while. And so I think all of Portland was walking along the Willamette River, and I was like, this is not in accordance with the recommendations. We should not be out here right now. So I think if you can find a less traveled road, that's probably more ideal. But I think getting outside is a good way to maintain some sanity in this. I think there's also lots of, I've seen lots of different offerings of online, either yoga classes or meditation courses or things like that, that can sometimes transport yourself without going outside. But the big things are to really try to stay away from crowds. We've recently been talking a lot about, is it okay to go for a walk with a friend as long as you maintain 6 feet of distance? And my interpretation of the recommendations is that it is preferred, if you're going to go for a walk and you need to go with someone, that you go with someone that you share a household with, and that you keep to those kind of constraints if you can. I think that it's hard to maintain this sometimes, so it feels pretty isolating, or you just have to see the same people over and over again. Like they just are always there. But I think there's Zoom, there's FaceTime, there's Skype, there's like I think I've had like requests from every family member through a different platform to do various like interactions online. So maintaining some social connection, I think, is also really important.
I have another question for you, Kristina. So it's a twofold question. So what if I or my child gets hurt? Is it safe to go to the emergency room? Are there different precautions I should take? How do I get a hold of the treatment center? Can you answer some of those questions for me?
Yes. Oh, really? So first and foremost, still call us with any concerns or bleeding questions, and we can help direct you if the emergency room is needed, or if there's something that we can do in clinic, depending upon where you're located. And we can, again, I think it's helpful still to call us, and then we can call either your emergency room or wherever we need to send you, if that's what we decide is necessary. And then also it's helpful, then we can give the emergency room a heads up and say, hey, this is this person and this is the treatment they need and this is what we recommend, which maybe can help expedite the visit. And also then connects them to somebody so that they can get the recommendations of what to do. And I think that the other thing that I've been really proud of Oregon's response is that all the hospitals are working really hard together to create standard responses and to make sure that their staff and their patients stay safe. So both patients that are sick with COVID-19, as well as patients who are coming in for just every other medical thing that can come up in life. And so I think that there is maybe some extra steps in each emergency room to do appropriate triaging or asking lots of questions, and to make sure that they can put people in the appropriate rooms and isolation and things like that. You might see a lot of healthcare workers are being asked to wear, at least at OHSU, and I think at other hospitals, to wear masks for all patient interactions. So you might see people in different protective equipment than they normally are, but still, I think if you need treatment, then we want to make sure you get that treatment, because we don't want anybody to not get treatment because they're afraid to go in if that's what they really need. But we can help you triage that and think about things that way.
Great, Madonna, I have a question for you. When do you think that the HFO will hold in-person events again?
So that's a really good question. We go day by day. For now, the events through the end of June have either been canceled or postponed. So if you were planning on going to family camp, unfortunately, that means that family camp will have to be something creative in the fall, or it'll have to be postponed till next year. That decision hasn't totally been made yet, because we're trying to find free weekends that are available in the fall for all the things we want to do. We don't yet know about July events. Those decisions are yet to be made, depending on how much we flatten the curve and how concerned people are about this resurgence, if we're going to have more of these COVID patients later in the season. So for now, we're kind of holding off on the July events, but it's not looking positive. What looks the most positive is potentially August and September, because I keep hearing from specialists through NHF and other places that hopefully it will have flattened out by that point, and we'll have a couple of months where we'll be able to do a bunch of activities, and then we may be canceled again starting later in the fall. And that's kind of what I heard from Dr. Fauci today as well, when he had the press conference with the president today. So he is about as optimistic as I am. So I'm hoping that August, September, and October will be safer months for us to do things. But in the meantime, we're going to try to do some things virtually. As I mentioned earlier, I talked to Pat Torrey from Gut Monkey, and we're hoping to do some virtual events that are fun and interactive and exciting for people when we can finally get back together. And even if we can't, we'll still do some virtual things. So we'll still be here, even if we're not able to get together in person.
Great. Dr. Haley, I have a question for you. Does having a bleeding disorder put someone at a higher risk for having COVID-19, and is it place them in some type of a high risk category overall?
It's a really good question. So I think, so the general answer is no. I'll give some more information. There was an initial, one of the early CDC posts said that people with bleeding disorders were at a higher risk for complications of COVID-19. And then that was later corrected or changed to be blood disorders. And I think they particularly were indicating blood disorders like sickle cell anemia. Sorry, my phone's ringing. One of the other doctors. I'll call him later. Sorry. So I think there was some, there's been reports of some of the other blood disorders that we care for in hematology, putting people at higher risk for complications of COVID-19. I think some of the initial concerns about patients with bleeding disorders is what people who are treating individuals with COVID-19 are seeing, that they have when they're very ill and their immune system is overreactive, and that sends off a cascade of events that can activate the clotting system, and patients can have both bleeding and clotting. We see this in severe infections other than the COVID-19 infection. So other serious, both bacterial and viral infections can cause a kind of overuse or over consumption of your blood clotting proteins, and make you have more bleeding events or even clotting events. And so I think there was some confusion there about if you had a pre-existing bleeding disorder, would that increase your risk? And so far, it doesn't seem like that has been true. And from talking to colleagues across the country, we don't have any evidence that patients with bleeding disorders have a higher risk of getting the infection or complications of the infection. If you're a patient that has an inhibitor and you're receiving medications that suppress your immune system to treat that inhibitor, so medications like called rituximab or mycophenolate, there's some concern that patients who are immune suppressed may be at higher risk of complications or of getting the infection, but that's a smaller population of patients, and certainly if you're in that category, please reach out to your provider so we can talk about that.
Great, thank you. I have another question for you. When do you anticipate the Hemophilia Clinic and Dorenbecher Hospital in general to be resuming normal and in-person appointments? And maybe if I'd add on to that, can you explain maybe what an appointment might look like now if you're calling for an appointment?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know yet. I think the hospital is being really cautious and preparing. Part of the reasons that they've asked us to not have in-person visits for right now is to, one, decrease the number of patients who come to the hospital, so decrease the number of exposures that patients are experiencing, and then also to decrease the number of staff that are at the hospital, so just decrease the number of staff that are also exposed to one another, to other patients, and just to like decrease the number of people in one space. And then there's a whole bunch of work that's going into planning in the event that the physical distancing doesn't have the effect on the number of infections, that we can expand clinical areas. So like the ICU could use beds and areas and space that of the hospital that are not currently ICU type areas, so that if we had more patients and we currently are able to take care of us in our current spaces, that we could expand and use other clinical spaces that are usually used for like outpatient visits. Right now, it seems like the modeling indicates that we aren't going to be seeing as many patients as we initially thought, which is really great. And that's because everybody's doing their part and staying home. But the hospital is still planning for that surge, because it's better to plan and be prepared, and then not have to use those spaces. We haven't heard from the hospital yet what the plan for May is. So we've only gotten updates that as far as the end of April, we won't be having in-person clinics. Based on the projections, it seems like the peak for Oregon for COVID cases is probably going to be later in April than what people had initially thought, again, because of people doing social distancing or physical distancing. So I think it's very possible that we still won't be able to have in-person clinics in May. But as soon as we know, we will let everybody else know. We're planning, we're making plans to prepare for not having clinics in May, in-person clinics. But again, we'll do our best to do virtual visits. And so what that could mean, especially for comprehensive clinics, is that we'll still have access to our full team. So the providers, the hematologists, the nurses, the social work, physical therapy, our education specialists, genetic counseling, research, pharmacy, psychology. I hope I got everybody. And that we're figuring out a way. It's a little bit cumbersome. I apologize for all of you to take a lot of phone calls back and forth from all the people on the team, but that way we can make sure that you get all of your needs met. So for right now, our visits will be a combination of telephone, and then once we are able to set up the video visits, hopefully next week, then a combination of telephone and video visits, so that we can at least see your smiling faces every once in a while.
Thank you. Madonna, can you maybe repeat where someone would go if they were maybe suffering from a loss of employment or were having financial constraints? I know you mentioned that at the beginning of the call, but there was a question about repeating maybe what you said at the start of this webinar.
Sure. So we've been able to get a few funds to help out with individuals that are experiencing some financial challenges during COVID-19. So if you are challenged with either losing your job or insurance or struggling in other ways, we encourage you to call the Hemophilia Center. So just call the regular number that you would call if you're trying to make an appointment. And then they will put you through to the correct person that will then start what we call a patient assistance or emergency assistance request for you. Like I said, though, we don't have tons and tons of money, but we certainly have money if people are struggling and we don't want anyone to get kicked out of their house or to go without food or anything like that. So HFO's board of directors has been generous and expanded our emergency assistance plan through this time. So I would encourage you to reach out to the treatment center and probably talk to either Erin Stang or Madeline Newcomb if you have those kinds of questions. And then HFO will take over and help out with getting any sort of assistance that you might need.
Thanks, Madonna. I think that we were able to address all of the questions that have gone through the chat line. So I appreciate everyone who sent in their great ideas and outstanding questions that they may have. I think for our first run, this has gone pretty well. Only had a few technical difficulties and I only showed my face once, which was really exciting. But I do feel like hopefully people found that this was of value and that we can continue to partner together between the treatment center and HFO to be able to offer town halls or educational events or just ways that we can get together and support people who maybe need some support now, as all of us do. So with that, I would welcome that you send any feedback that you have on this experience back to Madonna. She probably will be reaching out through her Monday surveys to see how things have gone. Kind of put that in there for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And again, I really appreciate people taking the time. If you have any input into how we could make this better, please send those thoughts our way.
Susan, I have one more thing, if you don't mind. I probably should have said this sooner, but the office, the calls are being recorded, but the problem is we don't check it that often since we're not actually there. So if you actually have something that you need to reach out to HFO, then I suggest you call my cell phone, and I'm happy to give you my cell phone. It's 724-553-9030. And I have that thing almost attached to my hip, so you can call me and let me know if there's anything I can do to help or get some answers for you at any time.
Great. Thank you, Madonna. Thank you, Kristina. And thank you, everyone who attended. Have a great rest of your night.
Hopefully we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.